Hello everyone, Alimamy Pallo here, founder of the I Am community and author of the upcoming book, Chasing Angels. In this video, I'll be showing you the 5 books that inspired me to start writing. So make sure you hit the subscribe button below and click the notification bell for future videos. Let's get into it. So after the last video, I was getting a lot of questions concerning the characters, the topic, and the setting of the book. Questions like, oh, if you're an author in Africa, how come you're not writing a book about Africa or even set in Africa? And these are rational questions. But let's understand that this is the first novel. And for this story, the setting that I put Chasing Angels in, it fit perfectly for it to be in modern day America. And 2, almost the same reason, this is the first novel. I will have hundreds of opportunities in future publications to write about Africa, and I promise you that I will. So it came to mind, you know what, let me do a video about the 5 books that inspired me to become an author, that inspired me to love writing and creating worlds. And maybe this will shed light on the rationale behind me picking an urban fantasy book and also setting it in another continent. And the first book that did this, the first book that had the most impact on me, was The Golden Compass by Philip Pullman. This book was so radical to me because it was the first book that I had ever read featuring a young character who was not only a female, a young child, but she was at war with the theocracy. You know, growing up in a church, it seemed like just a radical idea for somebody to be at odds with what in the book is called the magisterium. And seeing Lyra go through the journey of understanding herself, growing up, you know, maturing, meeting these fantastic characters, and the world that Philip Pullman built, it's just so fascinating. It drew me in from the first page to the last page. And even now, in 2020, he's gone back to the stories because the 3rd book, The Amber Spyglass, ended years ago. He's come back to it in 2020. And the story is still fresh and exciting and new because the themes that were so radical back then, they still resonate with the same feeling right now. And having somebody he's writing about your inner soul being an outer extension of you in the form of what they would call a demon or a daemon in the book. And it was just an amazing world to read as a kid. And the idea that there was no topic that you could not discuss, that topics that were taboo, such as spirituality and religion, and seeing Philip Pullman discuss them so bravely and to paint religious topics in such a light that many disapproved of, but it was just so fascinating to read as a kid. It always stuck with me. So the first book that inspired me was The Golden Compass by Philip Pullman. And not only do I suggest that you go out and read this book, but that you finish the series, which is followed by The Subtle Knife and The Amber Spyglass. And actually, they've converted it into a film adaptation, which is one of the best ones that I've ever seen. It almost follows the storyline to a T, and I highly recommend that. So the first book that did inspire me was The Golden Compass by Philip Pullman. So the second book that inspired me to start writing was Ender's Game by Orson Scott Card. Orson Scott Card created this brilliant world where aliens, they had already invaded Earth once, and the forces of Earth, they had finally put aside international squabbles, economic issues, and put together a joint international militia to fight off the alien invasion. And now they also created a battle school where young soldiers could train in preparation for the upcoming alien invasion that they knew was coming for the 2nd time. And Orson Scott Card, in the same vein as Philip Pullman, was pushing the lines of morality to the point of it was so controversial in the sense that these were child soldiers whose initial goal was, yes, to ultimately save the world from an alien invasion, but the battle school that was teaching them to politic, to deceive each other, to create cabals, and to actively try and destroy each other for higher standing, higher reputation, to be accepted by the teachers. And just watching the level of debate, the level of the lengths that each children, I want to say they were pre-teens. I don't remember the exact age, but they just absolutely young kids, and who were brilliant by the IQ tests and by the tests that the school was conducting for them. And this just made them even more able to commit these just atrocious acts. But reading it as a young kid is like, wow, for him to enter into the world and enter into the mind of children, for me to be able to relate to the writing showed me that you don't have to be the person that you're writing about. You don't even have to be even close to them. As long as you as a writer can create that world, you can create the same impression that you're aiming for. You can create the feel that you're looking to create. And that was just so awe-inspiring as a kid, because I didn't know anything of politics at the time. I wasn't thinking about, an alien invasion coming. And it sounds like just a typical sci-fi novel, but the dialogue that he was having and the interaction between the children and the adults was just so captivating. And actually, he created just all the sequels. They just get better and better and better. And there's Shadow of the Giants, whether it's Speaker of the Dead, Xenocide, Children of the Mind, whatever direction he went in afterwards, it just made it more and more and more interesting. Which also showed me that as a writer, the first book is just a starting point. The creation of that first book, it can take you anywhere. As soon as you get the words down, the sky's the limit. And also, this is also another book that they adapted into a film. So I highly recommend Ender's Game by Orson Scott Card, because it will blow your mind to read it if you haven't. And the third book that inspired me to want to start writing was The Amulet of Samarkand by Jonathan Stroud. Jonathan Stroud is another amazing author who created a world set in England, but he took magic in a different level. I've never seen the rules of magic done in this way before, and it really hit me as a kid, because it would be young Nathaniel, who was the main character, was just an upcoming magician learning the ropes, enters a typical magician family as it's done in the setting, and he meets the rough fatherly figure who begrudgingly takes him as an apprentice, and his wife falls in love with Nathaniel, takes him as her own son and molds him. And their magic, unlike other novels, it's based on the summoning of beings that give them their power. But Jonathan Stroud, he created an interesting world because he created the POV from the spirit himself, and he made the spirit Bartimaeus this funny, sarcastic, blunt, raw, but still compassionate and intelligent character. And I'd never seen it done from this angle before. I remember I read it maybe before I read Harry Potter or afterwards. I actually forget the time frame, but it was just fascinating to see it done in this way. And the world of London, the politicking that took place, even though Nathaniel was just a small, almost insignificant character as far as the large-scale politics was concerned in the British Parliament, he became so pivotal to the ending of the story. And seeing his growth from an ignorant, helpless kid desperate from attention from not only his master, but from his master's wife, and seeing him grow into this pivotal figure in the magical government at that time it's just an amazing novel. So I definitely suggest people read The Amulet of Samarkand by Jonathan Stroud. It's the first in the trilogy. And this book, they haven't converted it into a film yet. I can't imagine why. I hope somebody does. So I suggest all of you read The Amulet of Samarkand by Jonathan Stroud. The fourth book that inspired me to want to start writing was The Invasion, book 1 in the Animorph series by K.A. Applegate. And this one, I finally strayed away from magical elements, but the setting of school children who are just regular kids who just stumble upon an alien device seemingly by random and enter this dangerous world where they find out everything is not as it was. They find out that their parents, that their brothers, their teachers, everyone that they knew and thought they understood were actually infected by alien invaders or by parasitic creatures that were acting out and behaving in the exact same ways as people that they knew. And the responsibility fell on them to fight, to be able to challenge the forces of evil in this book as just typical innocent kids with no special skills, and the responsibility was put on them. This book was so impactful to me because magical realism books are books that are set in urban fantasy settings that make you think that if just a few more things were changed, that maybe I could fall into this adventure, fall into this story. And that always captivated me, that always excited me, that always drew me in as a reader. It's as if only a few more elements of my life were different, then I could be in the steps of maybe Jake, Marco, Tobias, or Axe from this book. And the series is just amazing. I actually stopped. I hadn't completed the series for years, but I went back to it later on now as an adult and finished it, and it was just a satisfying series. So I definitely suggest reading Animorph series by Kay Applegate. But the first book that drew me in, that inspired me, that taught me that it's not about magic per se, but just the excitement of an adventure, a dangerous story, creating characters that you can, identify with. And actually, this was the first book with, although the first one was set in Jake's point of view, as the series progressed, Kay Applegate created the story when all the characters were usually present in all of the books, but she would write different stories, different books from different characters' points of view. And I'd never actually read that before. As the series progressed, maybe it would be Jake today, it'd be Cassie, then the next book, Marco in the next one. And it's just fascinating. Every new book was a new adventure that was just amazing to read. So I definitely suggest you read the Animorph series by Kay Applegate, starting with The Invasion, and you finish the series. It inspired me, and I'm sure it'll inspire you too. And here it is, the fifth book that inspired me to want to become an author. And of course, there's so many books over the years that crafted my mind and inspired me to want to actually write for myself and create my own story. But these are just the first 5, I want to say, most prominent ones. And the fifth one is The Merchant of Death by DJ McHale. It's also the first in a series, the Pendragon series. And DJ McHale, he did something else that was very interesting. He took a young boy named Bobby Pendragon and he introduced him to the magical world of, traveling to other dimensions that were similar enough to Earth for him to fit in, but he had to radically adjust to the new environments. And there's a message in that. There's a story there. There's the fact that you as a human being, you have to face chaotic, unexpected, dangerous situations, circumstances, and environments for you just to become who you are. And as the series progresses, you see that everything that Bobby goes through is a test. He's obviously has, this typical archetype rival who's in the form of the character Saint Dane. And his battles with Saint Dane, it's not just about the new world that Bobby enters and him beating Saint Dane in that world. They have these discussions that almost border on the edge of theological. They're discussing, it's not just that Bobby should beat Saint Dane, it's the manner in which he beats him that's important. Saint Dane is actively throughout the book and the series trying to corrupt Bobby. And Bobby, only with the help of his Uncle Press, who came in, who introduced him to this new world and told him about his destiny to become this traveler, this person that travels into other worlds. He is Bobby's guide, but he's vague, he's ambiguous. For the most part, he leaves much of the journey and the decision making in Bobby's hand. And there's something so powerful in reading that as a young kid, just the metaphor that, hey, no matter what situation is thrown at you, it's your responsibility to face it. You're supposed to face it, standing up straight with your shoulders back and face it head on and with bravery. And you might get a little guidance here and there, but for the most part, it's on you. That's inspiring because it even led me to create this series. I've never done this before. I've never documented my life in a vlog format, and it can be frightening, but for the most part, it's exciting at times. But unless you're willing to face certain things, you can never become who you are meant to be. And there's a quote that says, you shouldn't sacrifice who you can be for what you are. And the element of change, it's important to constantly develop yourself and be willing to face new challenges and new ideas. And this is a theme that I got years ago when I read this book, maybe when I was 11 or 12, The Merchant of Death by DJ McHale. And this book just blew my mind. I highly recommend, whether you're an author, whether you're just a regular person just interested in an exciting adventure story, I definitely suggest The Merchant of Death by DJ McHale. And there you have it. These are the 5 books that inspired me to want to start writing. I hope they shed some light to give you some understanding on why I wrote Chasing Angels, why I picked the genre that I did, why I picked the topic that I did, and some of the underlying themes that I created in Chasing Angels. Remember, if you submit your email address below, I'm sending directly to you the first 3 chapters of this upcoming book, Chasing Angels, by me. And also in the comment section, I'm interested in hearing some of the books that have inspired you, that have had the biggest impact on you, whether as a child, whether recently as an adult, it doesn't matter. You don't have to be a writer. They don't have to inspire you to want to write. I'm just interested in hearing what you guys have to say in the comment section. So just on the comments below, tell me the books that inspire you, the books that had the biggest impact on you, irrespective of genre or anything. And also, don't forget to click on the Discord channel below, where you can join the I Am community and join other aspiring authors and writers who understand the struggle and are willing to lend a helping hand. So until next time, thank you.